Cavalier as well, but in Oslo, we've done coffee with KFGO. Thank you, Vision for being such great sponsors. But we've been to Oslo before, and I introduced the whole team here to Scott Kasmuk. He's a good friend. He's somebody I tailgate with. He's somebody that knows where the hog farm is there, which is important. But right now he's got his galoshes on. Scott, good to have you back on News and Views.
Hey, Joel, how are you doing today?
How bad is it, the flood?
Well, it's your typical flood here. We've been surrounded since last Tuesday, so they shut us off both ways, North Dakota and Minnesota, last Tuesday about 8 o'clock. So our heights are at 37.58, I believe, right now. Our rural roads are under, getting washed out. So, yeah, it's bad.
So nobody in, nobody out of Oslo?
They're getting in and out with the Guard. The National Guard from Minnesota has graciously come in again, and they're hauling people that have to get out for work or medical emergencies or anything like that. They get a schedule. They take off in the morning and come back in the afternoon. So,
well, you own a grocery store. Are they bringing produce in? Are they bringing anything in that you need?
Yes, the Guard has been great with that. They have been hauling product in for both me and the restaurant, and just helping out in a great way with that.
Okay, so that's good. What about the homes themselves? You can see water come up on the roads. It can stop you from getting in and out of Oslo, but the groundwater at that time rises too. So are the basements filling up?
There's lots of sump pumps running. That's for darn sure. Houses themselves are fine, except, like I said, the sump pumps are going pretty steady here. There's lots and lots of groundwater. The frost is starting to kind of break out here, and that water's seeping right down to everybody's basements and pumping right back out through the sump pump.
So what are they telling you when you get your life back and you can actually drive out of the town? What are they telling you?
When?
Yes.
We can do this?
Yep.
Well, the radiograph looks here, it's going to be at above 37 till Monday morning, and then at that point, the roads are still under. The Guard plans on leaving. I'm not going to. Don't quote me on this, please, but sometime when the water level hits 37 or below. But actually, I would say it's going to probably be till Tuesday.
Okay, so what height does the water have to be before the roads are all opened up?
Joel, this year I wish I could give you a direct answer, but it is so different. Nobody really knows. We can't really predict it. We didn't think it would come up this high in the first place, and it's backing up in different areas and taking roads out that's never taken before, and the ones that should be covered weren't covered right away. So I wish I could shake that magic 8-ball and say that, but we just don't know.
Yeah, it isn't like your first rodeo. I mean, you've been through this as mayor a number of times, and it's just we're gonna call back and get updates if that's okay, Scott.
Hey, anytime. Anything for you, Joe.
You bet. Great guy. The Oslo Hog Farm, some of the best sausage you could possibly try. Good stuff, Scott. I want some when I get back up there. Okay.
Well, it is first place award winning again this year. So
you won again.
Out there. Yes, won again.
The Harvey Avenue Saloon. So, all right, take care, man.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just a great group of guys. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, Abby, what's your horse's name again? Friday, so I'm joking, folks. You farmers out there, this is just a.
You've never missed a KFGO.
I've never missed a KFGO.
My Big Red Boss is going to be in it.
Yeah.
You know,
Could
Rusty.
you maybe call in?
Maybe.
Why is that funny? You know,
Can we go live with your rolleroscopist?
Would that be on C-SPAN? I'm sorry. That's too easy.
We're gonna go to the hospital. We're live with Jack Michaels.
You're snorting now. You're snorting
I'm
now.
sorry. That's a visual.
Somebody, no, this is
We'll
when
go
you
live
know.
live with Jack Michaels
Yes.
from the hospital
We
room.
should.
These are the good.
Can I get paid for that room out? Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, you're not doing play-by-play on my show leading up to my colonoscopy.
Look at that mic stand.
Somebody texted and says, Joel, suck on butter rum candy, then chug the, and he used a word for poop, but I think
Right?
he's more accurate. And then put the butter rum candy right back in. That's how you do it. Easy. Another one, don't mix your drink with lemonade. It burns at the end.
Boy, this is sounding more appealing. I don't know how you guys are going
Wow,
to trick
I
me
know.
into that coming up. This is why our physicians and anybody that helps save us, heal us, bedside manner is something. Whether
Yes.
it be a nurse or a doctor or whatever.
This is how great a listeners we have, too. It says, Joel, I still have my little twins bat, Harmon Killebrew, from Bat Day at the old stadium. I wish I had my glove with Rod Carew and Tony Oliva autographed. Went to that many Twins games in the 1970s. Another one. I caught a home run ball called by Jack Michaels at Newman in the first inning of the finals between the Red Hawks and Monarchs right field fence.
I was just going to say, probably right where Abby never comes into the game but walks with Gwen beyond the right field wall and then waves up to me in the press box.
And they went
caught a
on to
home
say
run.
they were listening to you call it on KFGO radio. So, yeah.
That is
They were
fantastic.
listening to you.
I'm surprised that as
So-
many times we walked by that we never got
Yeah,
a ball.
right. I always wonder.
Here's a thought. Buy a ticket.
She did once.
I went a few times.
Did you buy that ticket?
Yeah.
She had pretty good seats.
No. As she pauses. That's called a
I've
pregnant
always wondered.
pause.
I'm glad you got that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that text in because you wonder because you sit elevated and say here's the pitch to Pena swung on, drilled high in the air to right field. This ball's got a chance. And as you're going through that, if like you're on Albright Boulevard driving and you've got the game on, do you go? Oh, hold on, honey. This sounds like it's going to be a hole. There it is. And you stop the
there
car.
it's in my windshield.
Oh, better call. Yeah.
So here's more text messages. Best line after a rolleroscopy.
I thought it was Roland Musk.
Doctor in Arkansas, we're legally married now.
I mean, again, not to divulge from that surgery, but for our beds, I mean, you go, so Joel, what do you think of the stock market? What's the
How do you pivot?
what's the conversation?
Oh, someone's calling. What do you? Oh no.
Yeah, it's not
There's
good.
just no.
Katie Couric had one live on TV.
She did.
Yes.
Yes, she
Now,
did.
what does that tell you?
Well,
does that tell you that my good friend, my sports broadcaster, that maybe he
could do it live?
Or should do it?
Oh yeah,
Or should you better not let Sue Heitkamp find out that you haven't had one
Sue
yet.
and I are tight. We're close.
She'll make you
So
untight.
I'm going nowhere near.
She'll loosen you up.
I'm going nowhere near Sue. And no, I would encourage it. Obviously, yes. I'm not going to shirk
Don't do that.
that.
Don't say yeah. Do it.
Yep, you got to do that. Yep.
I want, because you've never broken your word to me, a commitment that within the next year you will do this.
Sometime in the future, that would be on my plans to do that.
It's just,
I think that you should, and
Yeah.
maybe we could go Katie Couric on you.
go Katie Couric on you.
I would. I think discreetly,
Yeah.
you could really make a difference.
It does matter. It
does matter. I'm
In
not
fact,
making light of that.
let's-
I know.
But
But I also come from a lot of. I'm not the only one that says that has this, and it's the wrong way to think about life. Going,
Yeah.
well, if I never go in, they'll never find anything. It's the
Yeah.
worst mentality to have.
right.
Yeah.
In
But
fact,
it's also the strongest. It's tough to get out of that mentality.
Abby wrote me a note that with Roger coming on, it might be good, basically a lesson for people like me. Roger, you're on News and Views. Go ahead.
Yeah, I enjoy the humor, but on a serious side, I had a brother-in-law that didn't do any of that stuff, and we buried him a few years ago because he had colon cancer.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
there's a reason.
I mean,
Roger.
have fun with it, but there's definitely a reason, and it's as much as everybody makes fun about it, this procedure itself is minimal. They take really good care of you, and the amount of liquid that you used to have to drink is way less than that nowadays. So it's more for good jokes, but I can't say strongly enough that colonoscopy saved lives.
I think your brother-in-law would be pretty happy with
Probably
what
the
you
most.
just did.
That's
Thanks,
probably the
Roger.
most important call we'll take this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and there's a reason that there's been light shed on colonoscopies so much the past few years, I think, and that's
Right.
the perfect reason
Well,
why.
and Roger said, have your fun with it. And he's right. But it's just, to me, that it's been more about scheduling, you guys, honest. I've had it done. Your dad was the one that looked at me and got up in my, Perry's my good friend, and he said, don't use any more excuses. Go get this done.
I think over the years we don't like to talk about things that are serious,
Right.
So with the humor that I know that Joel and I do at AB is not to make light of it, but to bridge and break down the barrier
Right.
from it.
Just
There's
kind
a-
of take it.
There's actually, I just double checked, but there's a colorectal cancer awareness month now, even too, and that was March. But there's been a lot of attention towards that.
There is, and I go back to what Roger said too. What you drink now, because I got the recipe, I've got everything that I've got to do.
Is it? Do you have to make yourself?
Well, you can. The doctor gives you stuff that you can mix now. At least mine did, and he said, "Hey, I suggest you do da-da-da-da." And so he's got I think 2 ingredients that I'm going to be putting together that and then tomorrow is a no eat day.
Yeah.
So you just
I don't mind.
You want to go out for lunch?
really, really be the only time she bought.
Right. You're- that's right. But I don't mind drinking things if something is going in your body to cure it, or if you're eating it, like broccoli. I was never a fan of, but I know it's got a lot of antioxidants, so I'll eat broccoli till the leaves fall off. So I don't So with that thing, I'm like, okay, this tastes like whatever.
Yeah.
Antifreeze mixed with smoothie. Right?
When you-
Have you ever had that? Don't.
haven't yet.
Yeah, that's not good. But knowing that it's something that needs to be procedurally in you, I would have no problem with that.
When you sit in a fish house with Rube Cott and people like that,
Yeah.
this is minor.
Well,
what you're putting in
told
their
us
mouth.
you've told us what's on the fish house
Oh,
scene.
that
This
fish
is-
house menu.
This is all minor. This will taste way better than most of the stuff you try.
That charcuterie is far different than Abby's.
Yeah. We should compare a charcuterie board sometime.
Like his fish house charcuterie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You make it look pretty though.
I will do this
We
as
make
long as you agree
Make it look
Oh,
to
no.
try everything on my board, and I will try everything on your board.
My board's harmless and everything tastes delicious.
Actually, in fairness to
Braunschweiger.
Abby's not a wimp when it comes to trying stuff like that, though. You're not,
To an extent.
to an extent. I will say.
I can't do tiger meat. I can't try the raw hamburger.
Yeah, that's got to be.
It's not
cooked.
hamburger.
Okay, what is it?
It's chuck. It's a different cut of meat.
Okay, well it's still
Well,
raw.
I mean, it's raw beef, but it's not
mushed up, ground.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But don't worry, there's seasoning on it.
Oh well. Oh, then.
hamburger. You guys,
I just don't think I can do that one.
until you try it.
don't think I
Tyler
can.
Axness wimped out the other day, because they were at the place, the guy he was talking to, they were making, fried Rocky Mountain oysters.
That's one thing I actually wouldn't.
No, I would
take
try that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Especially because I know so many people that enjoy them, and there's Rocky Mountain oyster feeds and
Yeah.
days. My grandpa owned a bar back in the day, and they would serve them once a month or something. And everybody in the town came to it.
I had 3 chicken nuggets yesterday for lunch.
Okay.
And this goes to back what Roger said.
I don't. Yeah,
The
there's some
kind of-
chicken nuggets that I don't know what's in that.
Right. I mean,
Roger's-
I guess that was my point.
Roger, your call was perfect
Yes,
with
it
the
was.
conversation we're having. And Roger, I think, will appreciate this. They said, Joel, they asked my dad before his if he needed to go to the bathroom. And he said, nope, that's your problem now.
That's right. There you go. That's
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
by
good-
the way,
good
I hope you're
awareness.
enjoying breakfast.
That's a
out
good
there.
awareness segment we've had.
Yes, it is.
And yes, I certainly will in the future make plans. Scheduling is also
Abby,
sounds
let's
like an
make
excuse.
this a mission.
Oh, you two.
A
You have
mission.
so much
He
other
wants
things.
to be.
No.
We want to document.
We're gonna
commitment.
keep on him. We're gonna keep on him. We won't do it on air, but we will.
And by the
harass.
way, what males versus females? I should have asked Roger this.
Same.
Males versus females. Same.
Right. I don't think she's gonna mind, but
No, I
Tasha
thought-
Carvel has one scheduled.
No, I know, but I mean, colon cancer affects
Everybody.
Is it equal? I know it affects everybody, but is it?
Well, I'm not an expert on
Okay,
this.
we're
I'm
going
just
to a
going in
break.
to get a
Oh, all right.
tube When we miss one day of the week already, right?
I know the week is so fast.
Doesn't it feel like it a little bit?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a Wednesday.
No,
I
it
had to
does
think
not.
about that.
Nope.
And
Nope.
then you're going to be gone on Friday too, so it'll just be like a vacation for me. But I think
Well, that's
because
because we spent the whole weekend
Yeah.
together, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's okay with me too.
neither of us are heartbroken.
Yeah, I'll be okay. In fact, the only way that I hope you do stop by is if you bring a rake. My guess is you're not going to do that, so we're good. Folks, a lot of things going on in terms of, the high rising water in the Red River Valley. We've got, I'm going to be heading out to Williston. Is it next week? I'm going to be.
Is
I
it
think
next
it is.
week already?
Yep.
Holy moly.
So I get to go to one of the most beautiful, great places. I love those trips. I
Yeah.
do. I'm just hoping the weather's good enough to go to the Voodoo Lounge. That's all I want.
Does the weather affect that?
Well, you're outside. You're by a campfire. So if
it
it's
does.
if it's 20 below, you're probably not going to do it. But
Yeah.
they're warmer than what we are. It's a new day, and I mean this as the compliment that it's intended to be. And you can say, well, you're slamming. I don't want to start this interview slamming anybody previously. But I like the fact now that when we call the Attorney General's office, we actually get an answer. When we call the Attorney General's office, somebody's willing to have that conversation. That doesn't mean I realize that Attorney General Drew Wrigley is always just going to hop on whenever we ask him to hop on. But what's nice is he's not afraid to have the conversation. Now, we don't agree all the time. In fact, there's many times we don't agree. But that's what this is about. It's about being able to challenge each other, government is best when you're being questioned. And so trust me, I think Drew knows I will provide that side of this. Attorney General Wrigley, good to have you back on News and Views.
Well, Joel, thanks for having me on. I was just talking with that. First, I want to congratulate all of you on the honor flight. What a great program, and I'm glad that you all got to go. I was here last week when we were welcoming the folks back from that trip that came back based out of Bismarck, Mandan, and what a great program. So kudos to you guys for going on that. I was talking to Abby before we got on the air, though. I appreciate that you didn't disappoint. You sent out a tweet this morning, and you always, every time I'm coming on the air with you, you have to point out that we don't like each other or we don't hunt together or something. And I only chuckle about it because I feel like we get along just fine. And I never, I don't want to miss an opportunity to come on the air with you. Although I did, I'll acknowledge. First, when I talked to you, I said, Joel, I don't think this is going to merit our first interview since I became Attorney General. But as we discussed it, I realized that I don't always get to determine those matters. It's a matter of public discussion. And you wanted to go into it, so I'm glad to be with you and your listeners.
Well, and as long as we acknowledge this is the first, and there will be more, then I don't feel bad raising this question. The big question is...
Well, you've got my private phone number. I actually told Abby when I called you, and you didn't pick up at first. I said, I think he throws my number away every time because he doesn't want to say that he's got my number. But you called me right back. So
in fairness, Ab, you and I are very protective of using cell numbers, right?
Yeah, we are.
We go through the proper channels. So, yeah, you gave us leave, so now you're in trouble.
I know. You told us we can use it, and we will.
So
anytime, just no hate mail. No hate mail, please.
Yeah, here's what I wanted to discuss with you. State Senator Tracy Potter asked you for an opinion as to whether or not the bridge, meaning the railroad bridge between Bismarck and Mandan, which is a historic land site, whether or not that was owned by the people of North Dakota. And you chose not to give an opinion. Can you give me the justification for that?
Yeah, first off, so that everybody understands, Attorney General's opinions are not like court opinions in that, the matters come before you and then you have to address whatever the question is. It's a discretionary matter for Attorney Generals to write or not write an opinion in response to a question that comes in. And there's a whole categories of things that are not appropriate because we are not a court. I am not a judge, so we don't make factual determinations. For instance, I don't hold hearings and take briefs, and it's not like that. It's really just to address matters of public concern with regard to the statutes, constitutional matters, and some other things that come up. We get requests almost every day in this office, and and where we can provide guidance to a political subdivision or a state senator, like Senator Potter or someone else will, or representative, other elected officials will ask for opinions. There are times that it's appropriate. In this instance, I did not agree to issue an opinion for a variety of reasons. First off, it would require, it's the kind of thing that's in litigation. This is a private matter to be civilly litigated, and also there is no question about the central matter of the state's ownership of the riverbed. That's not a matter in question. And I think Senator Potter's letter seems to say that if I don't comment on the ownership of the bridge, that somehow that'll impact state sovereignty and the riverbed. And I'm not sure I understand that, but because it's just not a matter in question. The state owns the riverbed. The sovereign interest in the riverbed is not a matter of law to be questioned. The ownership of the bridge is very similar. Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, they are the titled owner of the bridge. There's not a serious question in this matter for 130-some years. That's been the case. Back in 1864, Joel, Congress granted a right-of-way to the railroads to build, to maintain the railroad, including all the draws, all the culverts, all the bridges, importantly, that were necessary to erect and connect, to erect a railway that would connect Lake Superior out to the Pacific coast of the United States and all points in between. And it was a smart act of Congress, right, to say we're going to grant all of that to private investors who will then spend their resources to put in a rail system that's going to make it possible for us to transport goods and people across the expanding nation. I mean, it goes back to 1864, for heaven's sakes, and it continued from owner to owner to owner, private ownership of those bridges and entities crisscrossing the United States so that we can have a nation and commerce and move our people. That's never been a question. It's not a question now. Burlington Northern owns that rail bridge, and while it's beautiful and it's scenic, and we all love that, that's a matter of private property ownership. And I can't go paint my neighbor's house if I wanted to change colors either. And it's along the same line. So that's why I declined to write an opinion about a matter that was settled for 132 years. That even the participants in this I don't even call it a dispute. People have been trying to figure out ways to save that bridge and have another link between the western side and the eastern side of the river. But they didn't figure that out, and they've had years that they're going back and forth, and now they've got a novel argument at the end. And while I can respect creativity, at the end of the day, I'll have to reject. I heard this. Senator Potter was on your air last week and said this was a missed opportunity for Drew Wrigley. He could have been a hero. I'm going to have to avoid that and just have to stick with upholding the law.
So let me ask you the legal side of if someone lets something go. Okay, so they don't want the bridge anymore, and it's on my land, right? I mean, and the bridge is a historic site, and that weighs in on this as well. If the state of North Dakota, because it does have standing, because it is on their land, and it has been determined to be a historic site, what standing would they have with the railroad of saying, look, you can't knock it down?
I think that's that is a matter that has to be resolved between the private owners of the bridge. Like I said, I think it makes clear from way back to 1864, the grant of Congress of the right of these railroads to, at their own cost, put into this right of way across the nation. They basically, Congress enticed people to make private investment, build a private rail system across the United States, and they did so. And so now to say that exists, and it does under a congressional grant of authority to do it, that doesn't take away from the fact that when North Dakota became a state, the day we became a state, we as a state got the rights and ownership of the riverbed itself. But that didn't impact the fact that you had bridges going across it any more than if you and I had enough money, Joel, and we owned big houses up down on the river, and we had a big boat dock. It went out 20 feet off the shore, and it's moored to the bottom of the river. The federal government, the state government, they don't own that dock. You and I own that dock, despite the fact that the state owns the riverbed. That's the same concept here. It reduced to its essence. That's what it is. They had the right to build it. They did it at their own expense. They'd maintained it. I mean, if the state of North Dakota, I would say this: if the state of North Dakota, in 132 some years, had made a claim of ownership, claim they didn't somehow own it. They owe a lot of money to somebody for all the upkeep and everything else on that bridge, because it hasn't gone without the need for repairs to keep safety and everything else. I don't recall anybody showing a bill that the state of North Dakota has somehow maintained or done anything for that bridge. And why would they? The state of North Dakota doesn't own it.
Well, and there is another side, obviously, which is what if they said, okay, it's yours, goodbye. I mean, then you've got to make decisions of what you do with it, how you maintain it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, you mean if the state did? The state could do. I suppose they could say you can have it, and then the question would be, what would it cost to maintain? It's expensive to maintain that bridge, and the private entities have spent that money across 100+ years.
But let me ask you this: going back to the issue of the opinion, anyone who's listening to you right now, you have an opinion. I mean, you have made up your mind that look, we own the riverbank as North Dakotans. They own the bridge. They're the ones that maintain it. This is what I heard you just say. And we don't have the right to tell them what to do with a bridge that they own, which then to me, if Senator Potter asked you that question, the opinion would have been quite easy. Yeah, we may own the riverbank. They own the bridge. If they want to knock over the bridge, they get to knock over the bridge. Is that fair to say? Is that the opinion that the Attorney General's office has?
Well, actually, the analysis I'm giving you is the analysis of whether it's appropriate for us to issue an opinion. Like I said, I get requests in here literally every day. Things come in for requests for opinions, and we can do them or not. And by the way, this isn't exactly the Supreme Court of the United States or of North Dakota, for that matter. I mean, the minute an AG, the ink doesn't even have to dry on an opinion. And any district court judge in the state that rules on the same matter, it supersedes what the.
I guess what I'm getting.
We don't have a kingdom here. I don't want people to look at this as like the
Attorney General Wrigley, what I'm
out.
saying is, do you believe that the state could find themselves in a position where, unless BN turns it over, unless CP turns it over, that we would end up owning that bridge?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not following your. I mean, do I think that that's going to happen? I don't have any idea if they're going to do it. If they were to abandon it, you mean? If they would the state own it?
On a legal basis, would the state of North Dakota ever be able to bring a right forward where we say, look, it's on our riverbank, that's our bridge? Or what I'm hearing you say is, look, this was even before statehood. They own the bridge. Yeah. They did the maintenance. It's their bridge. They can knock it over if they want. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I think that's that's the situation that we're in, and that they can take it out. The comments that have been made, and I like the creative ideas. People say, well, can you keep the bridge and we use it as a footbridge? And as a resident of this community, that'd be fun, right? I'd like to ride my bike over the bridge and everything else. It'd be very expensive. Someone would have to pay for that. But then you put up one way or the other, the railroad has got to have a way to go across that river at that point. I think we'd agree on that. Obviously, you got to get from west to east, and vice versa.
That isn't what's in dispute.
It's not going to look the same anyway. I mean, it's going to be an obstructed view. But at the end of the day, Joel, you can drive to our cul-de-sac tomorrow and say, I don't like the way the Wrigley's house looks. I'd like to put some brick on there. I'd like to do a couple things. And you wouldn't have the ability to do that. And I think you look at this situation, and what you see is that we've got a private infrastructure investment through grant of Congress, and then the maintenance over 130-some years across that. And now you've gotten to a point where they need to upgrade that infrastructure for all the reasons you have the infrastructure in the first place, and that's why they're going to go ahead and do that. I understand people's impulse to want to save something that it's iconic. It's pretty. It's in everybody's graduation pictures here in this town and everything else. But at the end of the day, that's a matter of private concern and private ownership, and there isn't really a question as I look at this on whether it would be appropriate for an AG opinion.
Okay.
By the way, one last thing, if I could say, the different sides of this quarrel, I'll call it dispute. No one has produced a single case, not a single-cited case from anywhere in this vast United States, not one that would support the idea that in circumstances such as these, it is actually the state in question that owns that bridge, not one case.
And I think people were waiting to hear you say that. So thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joel.
You bet. Drew Wrigley, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the weather cave. Tom's been very patient with me. What's going on, Tom?
A few showers in South Dakota.
Just hear about the interview with Drew Wrigley. And Drew, if you're still listening, a lot of people thought that you filibustered. That's my fault as much as anybody's. I've got to be, I'm too polite, Abby. I should just be rude, just come in and say, hey, let's get to the question here, right?
Nah.
You think I'm rude enough? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I mean, I think it's also, you have to be polite to an extent.
All right, well, that's good. Let's get to Keith. Keith, you're on News and Views. Go ahead.
Good morning, Joel.
Morning to you.
About the bridge. Now, this is apples and oranges, but there's a bridge out by Wolf Point, Montana, and it's a highway bridge, but the locals call it the Big Silver Bridge, and it was too narrow. It was an old bridge. It was too narrow for two cars to meet on it. So the state of Montana bypassed the Big Silver Bridge, as they call it, and built a new bridge on the highway. They just kind of bypassed it, but they put it on the National Register of Historic Places, and it'll be there forever as far as I know. So why can't they do this to that railroad bridge? Of course, the railroad owns this bridge, and the people of Montana own the Big Silver Bridge.
Uh-huh. This bridge is a historic land site. It is. And I think here's what I believe that many people are concerned about when it comes to the bridge, Keith, is they're looking for ways to encourage North Dakota government to get active in trying to save it. And I think that they're really struggling with that. And so, what you just described is a state getting involved and active in saving that piece of history. That's not happening here, Keith. The state is kind of, I know the governor's office was all in on saving it, and then they met with CP, and the next thing you knew, the debate over whether to save it was over with the governor's office. So thank you, Keith. But that is a really good example. I know that this went on at the 3 affiliated to. At the new Forebears Bridge was a major step. threw on the brake the bridge that was up at Fort Berthold Reservation, and what we were looking at with the Four Bears Bridge. I was up there back in man, you want to talk about time flying, right? The bridge opened to traffic, the new bridge the new Four Bears Bridge. This opened on September 2nd, 2005. I was broadcasting from there. I'll never forget that. And we went up there for the big celebration, and it was a big celebration. It was. At that time, I think there were some competing interests for leadership in the tribe, and both of them took time to get their points across. And to some degree, it actually turned into more of a political meeting, and that's fine. I mean, it's their governance, and it was their bridge, and so they could open it up any way they wanted. I just remember, the artistry of it, the pageantry of it. It was wonderful to be there and be part of it. It went on for quite a while. I also remember my radio equipment didn't work, and yet we promised we'd cover this, so I ended up in the parking lot with a cell phone hooked to my ear the whole time. I don't know that we did a very good job of doing what we said we were going to do. That being said, I don't think people, when they look at the old bridge, saw a historic site that does what the railroad bridge in Bismarck-Mandan does. What that bridge in Attorney General Wrigley was right when he said senior pitchers, all of those things. It has defined the landscape, the skyline of the Bismarck-Mandan area for a long, long time. And I think it's Tracy Potter's job. I do. I think it's Tracy Potter's job on behalf of his constituents to come forward and say, all right, I will get you an answer to this. I will make sure that we find out who owns the bridge. Now, what he's saying is that since that, and I'm looking over a document here from the United States Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Coast Guard that brings out reference to the railroad bridge based upon opinions that were issued. So this goes back to May 3rd. What day is it today, Ab?
May 4th.
That's right, May 3rd. And I think that this letter, we're going to have to call Tracy on and find out what this means and get Senator Potter on, because I think decisions are being made based upon some of what the Attorney General has said or didn't say. And so, they go back in the letter and say a representative of the Attorney General's office contacted the Coast Guard after having reviewed the submittals by, the BNSF and others and researched the matter. The Attorney General elected to not provide an opinion regarding potential state ownership of the bridge. Instead, the Attorney General forwarded to the Coast Guard a copy of the enclosed letter, which he wrote to State Senator Potter addressing the same bridge ownership question. It is undisputed that BNSF has sufficient ownership rights restricted to operate and maintain the existing bridge as it has done, and its predecessors have done since the bridge was constructed in 1883. Given that the state has considered the position advanced by FORB and BNSF and elected not to assert an ownership interest in the rail bridge or otherwise take a position on this dispute, the Coast Guard has determined that BNSF is the proper party to submit an application for replacement of the bridge. As such, the Coast Guard will continue to process the application package. So what that tells you, and certainly what it tells me, is that based upon the fact that the Attorney General would not get into the potential of the state owning the bridge, the Coast Guard is moving forward. So the Office of Bridge Programs, Shelley Sugarman, has decided that North Dakota has spoke by Drew Wrigley not speaking. So opinions matter. Opinions matter a lot. Now, there's a couple of things to ponder here. I'd like to see the bridge stay. I mean, they're full disclosure. I'd like to see the bridge stay. I think it not just defines Bismarck-Mandan, but it's one of those those things that man and woman built in this country. Excuse me, I got like massive. It just comes on. It's not cough or sick.
I know, it's your supposed allergies.
It is allergies, and I never struggled with allergies. I didn't.
Do you have a humidifier?
Should I buy me one of them?
I don't know. I just always like
All right.
them.
So, anyway, sorry about that. A little bit of a plug nose. But when you look at the bridge, you see a big part of North Dakota. So I'd like to see the bridge stay. But I keep putting myself back in what if I held Doug Burgum's seat, right? What if I was the governor? And the Burlington Northern Santa Fe radio said, all right, you can have it. It's yours. Here's the keys. We got a new one over here. Coast Guard gave us a permit to build a new one. You now own the bridge. What would I do? I mean, that's a fair question for the Friends of the Bridge and others, right? What would you do if the state owned it? It's a historic site, but you just got a piece of equipment that you're going to have to maintain. You're going to have to convert. You're going to have to spend a bunch of money on, So yeah, you won. And in my opinion, the state of North Dakota won, but are you ready to win? Is, I guess, what I'm building up to here. And I'm curious what you folks think about that. 1-800-880-5346. That's our Laney's News and Views studio line. Of course, you can text us to our iConsultants of North Dakota text club at 35270. Somebody said, what is wrong with Governor Burgum and leaders? They should save the bridge in Bismarck. What would be the problem? Great walking bridge. Would they tear down the Duluth Lift Bridge? Grand Forks old bridge taken down after the flood. Grand Forks misses. They typed it wrong. Grand Forks misses the old bridge taken down after the flood of 97. Grand Forks after that flood has never looked the same. I mean, there are things that had to have broke the heart of many people that called Grand Forks home for years. That being said, I couldn't. I've stayed right by that bridge in Duluth a million times. I've ridden motorcycle up there and hung out there. I can't imagine Duluth without it. Just like I have a hard time imagining Bismarck-Mandan without it. Are you as North Dakotans ready to put your money behind it then? I mean, are you? Are you ready to put your money behind it? I'm not convinced you are. Ted, you're on News and Views. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, Joel, is that an NP bridge, a Northern Pacific bridge?
Yeah, it's a CP bridge now, right? Canadian Pacific has it.
Was it originally a Northern Pacific or Great Northern?
I think it was Great Northern, Ted, but don't quote me on that.
Well, Great Northern and NP merged to become the Burlington Northern, but the NP was a land grant. And when they were land granted, they were supposed to maintain passenger service, and they broke that agreement back in the 70s when Amtrak started.
Okay. Yeah.
My point is, they've reneged on never went up to their promises of maintaining passenger service.
Okay. I think I get what you're saying.
To ask.
Yeah, that would be. You're hitting me with more history than I've got a right to debate you on, Ted. You're more informed than I am, so I appreciate it. A couple messages come in here, and what he's doing is going back to history to see if everybody kept their word on it, and it goes back to the motivation of keeping it, right? I mean, isn't that what Ted was getting at? Roy, you're on News and Views.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I've got a novel idea. How about the state buy the bridge and put some money into it like they did the Theodore Roosevelt Museum, and it would be in the middle of the state by the Capitol, and make it a restaurant and shop area all the way across the river above the water, and it could be for tourists and citizens to come and eat and shop and recreate.
I don't know what, the talk that's out there, Roy, because of how narrow it is obviously to be, a walking path, that they want to walk across it and use it as a
Well, how
bikeway or
about
walkway.
How about redesign it?
Well, now you're really in, I think, period, you're really into money. But food of thought, I get it. A bunch of text messages come in. One says, pretty interesting that we, in parentheses, as a state, it kind of makes me laugh. The right wing in North Dakota mind has about as much depth of that of a goldfish. They would have turned down the Tower Bridge in London. Okay. Another one. Joel, if you were governor, you'd try and help save it, help the people keep it. And this person's nice enough to say I'm not a putz. So there's some good to that. They're saying it was NP, that it was Northern Pacific, BNSF. So there's a lot of things out there. What would you do, North Dakota, if they gave it to you? Because that's really what we're debating here, right? We're debating that the land it sits on is the people of North Dakota's. And so you can't just knock it over if it's on our land. That it has to be, and that ownership could come back to the state of North Dakota. It's a historic site. It's on North Dakota land. And because it's all of that, you can't just knock it over. That's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is the one that Drew Wrigley just presented, which is they own it, they've maintained it, they've used it, it's been there for years. If they want to knock it over, they can knock it over, even though it's on state property, right? I mean, which one of those, if you agree that it's the state's, which let's make that assumption, then are you ready to invest in it to keep it? I had someone tell me the other night when I went to David Crothers' funeral, I went and sat with a good friend, and he and I were talking about a lot of things, and I asked him about the bridge because Bismarck Mandan is home for him. And this was not, by the way, my brother-in-law, my sister, this was not someone related to me. It's just a friend. And he said where the BN is goofed up about this whole thing is they should have realized how important the bridge was to the area, and realize that nobody's walking across it now, but, invest in what people would want to do. Not necessarily the bridge, but, for example, pave everything out to Fort Lincoln and back. Put an investment out there in bike trails, those type of things, and show that you care about the community before you knock the bridge over. And he got my attention when he said that. Let's get to the weather cave and visit with Too Tall Tom. Tom?
All right, well, we got to
Somebody said, Joel, did I understand that correctly? Wrigley sent a letter to the Coast Guard with his opinion that he has no opinion, and now that's the opinion. Yep, that's what it is. I'm sitting here looking at a letter from the U.S. Coast Guard, Shelley Sugarman, the Coast Guard bridge program, that said, look, because North Dakota didn't say, hey, we got a horse in this race, we're out, we're done. And this was sent April 27th to Senator Potter. So I've got a copy of that letter as well. But if you look at what the Coast Guard sent, it was based upon, as they point out, the letter that the Attorney General's office had sent to Tracy Potter. So a couple of things, right? And I'll go back to this text message. It says, Joel, if you get gifted or buy that bridge, you dang well better know what it's going to cost to maintain it before wanting to or signing on the dotted line. That would be a good question for Mr. Potter. Excuse me. I don't think Tracy runs away from questions like that. I think he'd be happy to answer, and I'll call him if you want me to. It says BNSF still runs passenger rail traffic across the northern route through Minot Glacier National Park to the west coast. I knew that. I think most people did. It's Joel. It's pretty clear on the bridge. Where the heck do all these people think the money will come from to make it any of these things? It's very nice structure, but it does the state want to be saddled with ownership and destroying or keeping the next structure that might come up? Joel, thought the governor was an advocate to save historic buildings. I'll bet if it was in Fargo, it would be saved. Sad. But, here's the truth to all of it. The governor hasn't dealt himself a hand. He was dealing himself a hand, and he didn't when it came to this. Let's get to Sarah Heinrich. And Sarah, let me know what's going on in our commodity prices.
Right now, we're seeing a mixed board in the grains with July corn up 4.5 at 7.
Network. Abby Miller is your producer. I'm your host. That's right, Joel Heitkamp. We love getting a chance to do this with you each and every day. There's an individual, Riley Kuntz, who I don't know of. I know a little bit about his work or his passions, but he has decided that he'd be a better United States Senator than John Hoeven. He has decided that he'd be a better representative on the ballot on the Republican side of the ticket than John Hoeven. Riley Kuntz is a Republican, and he wants that spot, so he's taking him on in the primary. Riley, good to have you on News and Views.
Good morning, Joel. That's quite the introduction. Thank you.
Well, explain to me why. Why what I just said is true.
Well, for the last couple of days, I've been trying to figure out what exactly John's done for North Dakota, standoutish in the last 12 years he's had as senator. I'm the type of guy who will do things like the governor from Texas when illegal immigrants keep coming across the border and D.C. doesn't want to do anything about it. We ship them up to D.C. and then make it their problem.
Okay, so John Hoeven is spending his time down on the border lately. I've been seeing all that. Do you think he's ineffective or what, if you're going to use that as your example?
Well, I think he could be more aggressive in his dealing with or helping out North Dakota. Kelly Armstrong is doing a significant job, and he's doing a good job, I think.
Okay, so
he's that way.
You've got to answer it this way, though, Riley. You don't have to answer it this way, but you've got to answer to a comment like that. What has Kelly Armstrong done specifically on an issue that John Hoeven hasn't?
Oh, that I'm not prepared for specifically.
But you just said Kelly Armstrong has done a better job than John Hoeven. So you must have some idea of some issue somewhere that made you go, all right, I like this Armstrong, but yet it's clear you don't like this Hoeven. So, why?
Well, I campaigned for Kelly and follow his social updates and whatnot. And when issues are near and dear to me, I reach out to his office, and he's pretty responsive. So I appreciate that. And we're almost on the same page on a bunch of things. So
okay. John Hoeven's been in office for a long time. And John Hoeven, and this is Joel Heitkamp talking now, not Riley Kuntz, but it's like Teflon. When I question him on air, I don't get an answer. It's more of a filibuster. He hasn't spoke bluntly ever. I don't know if that's the banker in him or whether or not that's the safety net in him. But you raised the question in the beginning that you don't think he's done anything. Can you name anything that you look at and say, wait, he did that well? At least he did that.
Well, he's pretty good at keeping, the farm bills and everything going. And actually, I'm not like dogging the guy entirely. Okay, I think he could just be a little bit more assertive for North Dakota. He's done some things, obviously, in the last 12 years, and it's helped North Dakota. But I think we could do a better job. Okay.
But and I'm going to push back on that a little bit, too, because you make statements like that, you got to be willing to back them up, which is what has he done and how would have you done it different?
Well, I haven't broken it down that way, honestly.
All right. Then let me ask you this. If they buy you, the Republican side, and then the North Dakota side in the fall, if they say Riley Kuntz is a guy that we want to hold this high-ranking office for the state of North Dakota, what do they get? What did they buy?
A guy who will fight for North Dakota. And actually, there was one issue here that is coming back to me now a little bit, and that's the right to life. Republicans are pretty staunch supporters of this right to life, and there hasn't been much proactive being done by my opponent on that front specifically. I think Roe versus Wade is an extrajudicial opinion played by politicians, and there was another press release yesterday where they're in an unprecedented move. They leaked a potential opinion of the majority swaying one way or the other in this new case that they have before them now. And that's one of the other problems that needs to get tackled is the Supreme Court is not politicians, they're judges. They've stepped outside of their authority, and the executive has also stepped outside of their authority. Take, for instance, all the conflicts without congressional delegations of war. I find that unacceptable. I see no reason to be putting our troops in harm's way for something a president has just decided whimsically that we need to go do.
An example.
Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, now Iraq, or now the Ukraine.
So you don't think the U.S. should be involved in the Ukraine?
I think that if anything is involved, we should be promoting peace negotiations and urging both parties to come to the table and talk about what they need to do to stop the fight.
How do you negotiate with a butcher like Vladimir Putin? Or don't you see him that way? Do you see his side of the argument?
Well, I see his side of the argument. Yeah, for sure.
What?
I think
that instantly, Riley, what do you see about what Vladimir Putin has done that in any way, shape, or form justifies what he's done? What in the world? And Riley, you proudly say you are more conservative than John Hoeven. You are further to the right. I respect that because that tells me a position. Where I struggle with it is in people in the Republican Party justifying what Vladimir Putin has done in this massacre. So I'm going to challenge you on that, Riley. I want to know how you can see any part of what he's done.
Well, for the last 7 years, there's been two breakaway republics. I think it's Donetsk and Minsk, if I'm even pronouncing them properly, who have been getting bombed by the Ukraine needlessly. Civilians have been dying, and President Putin finally did something about it. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. I don't know if there was full negotiations before the fact. I can guarantee you that I don't have all the facts, and probably most of the people in this country do not. But that's what I see. There's no reason to have somebody bombing another country for 7 years and not have anybody do anything about it. I don't know why NATO didn't do something about it in the first place. Isn't that kind of their mission?
So you think that the reason
United Nations?
You think that the reason Vladimir Putin is murdering the people of Ukraine is because Ukraine is the aggressor militarily?
Yes.
All right. And I'll let people judge your candidacy based upon that. Let me ask you this. You brought up the pro-life issue. You brought up activist judges. Do you believe that if this Supreme Court rules to overturn Roe v. Wade, that they're being activists or going along with the letter of the law?
To support or overturn?
Well, I'm assuming you're going to support their overturning Roe v. Wade. So my assumption is that you would have voted to confirm Judge Kavanaugh and Judge Gorsuch and Coney Barrett.
I don't know about the last one for sure.
You wouldn't have supported Judge Barrett. You wouldn't have voted to confirm her.
No, I'm not sure. I didn't follow that closely enough.
Okay, so you don't have a reason. Then let me ask.
No fact.
But let me ask you this: you think that John Hoeven has been in support of activist judges? I have to ask you: these three judges are what made the difference to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Well, if that happens, that's a pretty big if. There's a lot of different theories on why they made the little press release. That's never happened before, but.
Okay, then let me ask
that would be a good thing. So let's get back to the point. That would be a good thing if they overturned it. I think that Congress should have solidified this issue within the first decade that it came out.
And part of the reason that Congress is doing what they are in terms of making and supporting what the Supreme Court's about to do, your side of the aisle, I should say, is doing this is because you believe these decisions should be made by the states, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. Do you believe that an abortion is murder, that you've taken the life of a human being?
Yes.
Then how in the world can you leave it up to states to allow it?
Well, it's up, just like leaving it up to the United States Supreme Court. It's up to, why can't it be up to the states?
You're missing my point. You said that this is murder, that you've killed an unborn child, that this is murder. And yet you've said that this should be left to the states. If South Dakota is allowing murder, I'm going to have a say in that, whether it's federally, in some shape or form. And so I'm struggling to figure out how Republicans who believe that abortion is murder can say that it's a state right.
Well, we don't have any authority to do what California does, for instance, whether it be right, wrong, or otherwise.
Sure you do, Riley. And let me give you an example. If what you just said isn't true, then we'd still have slavery. Right?
I would have hoped. Well, theoretically, I see your point. Theoretically, I think that hopefully we would have progressed past that at some point.
Well,
but
these questions might seem hard, Riley, but you're diving in the third end of the pool right away. You're running for the United States Senate. These questions they might seem hard to you, but you better get ready for this, because if you're going to get into a debate with John Hoeven, these are questions you're going to have to answer. And these are questions that the people in North Dakota deserve to know your opinion on. And so, my encouragement to you, as somebody who's willing to put his name on a ballot, which I have said many times on this show, I have a tremendous amount of respect for, is to get ready. Because if you think this was rough today or tough, it's going to get worse. So if you win, I'll guarantee you that. Riley, people do deserve to know more about you, though. Where do they go? Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page?
There's a Facebook page currently and a website in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you get the website, you let me know so I can help share that, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
You bet. Riley Kuntz, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go get to Tom Szymanski and find out what's going on in our weather. Tom?
Good morning, everyone. The long-awaited and much
Somebody has to explain this to me. And before that, I don't want to link these people to some of them, but the cruiser is sponsored by the North Dakota Farmers Union, the North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives, Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty and Land Management, Nilson Brand Law, and Broadband Association of North Dakota. Somebody has to explain this to me. How did we get to a place where the Republican Party, or at least a portion, that in fairness to the Republican Party, a portion, but it's a bigger portion than you think, of the Republican Party support Vladimir Putin? You just heard it. This is a conservative member of the Republican Party. This is a states' right individual. How did we get to where they support Vladimir Putin? And yet at the same time, will tell you that they support the life of the unborn. So, okay, you heard from him that he believes that abortion is murder. You're seeing that all over the media, right? That's the right's message today. Abortion is murder, and because it's murder, it shouldn't be disqualified. It shouldn't be allowed as an option in rape, incest, any of that, because it's murder. But it should be a state's right. It should be a state's right. So if Arkansas says no, then by God, they're stopping murder, but go ahead and have New York commit murder, and you're okay with that. We're going to talk some more about this when we come back. Just coming in, a bunch of them. Somebody said Republicans think Putin is okay because Trump thinks he's a genius. They are all heartless, cruel, soulless, spineless, brain-dead sheep that would do anything to win Trump's approval, and Trump is as bad as Putin in my book. I think they made their opinion. They definitely made sure that you knew where they stood. Let's get to... I got to hit the next button, so I do it in order. Kurt, you're on News and Views. Go ahead, Kurt.
Good morning, Joel, and I'm just going to get pulled over here. I'm out in the oil patch. Republican, and do appreciate your show. I believe it makes me well-rounded to listen to both sides. But if I am to talk about, say, a race of people, and because one guy made a comment and I say they, where does that put me?
Well, and that's why I try to put the precursor out there, Kurt, that the far right, or a fraction of, or Bastiat, or you use different terms, but the one thing that he clearly says is that he's a Republican. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay, and that's why it's worthy of a discussion, Kurt, because I think that you're seeing not just here in him, but there are people involved in media in North Dakota, Kurt, that agree with what he's saying.
Okay, just don't throw me in that bus, I guess.
You know what, Kurt?
Please.
I am glad you called in. I am really glad you called in, because as a Republican, that needed to be said. And so you're not somebody who's going to call into talk radio. I appreciate you doing that. Let's get to Herb. Herb, you're on News and Views.
Yeah, hi. Yesterday, I believe you said that you were quite sure that the leak was from the right or Republican.
No, I said what if.
Oh, did you? Okay, I may have misunderstood you then, because there's no reason in the world that the Republicans would leak a decision that's favorable to them and risk screwing it up.
Well, okay, let me throw you a why, Herb, okay? Justice Kavanaugh made it pretty clear to all people during the hearing. In fact, if you go back to Republican Senator Susan Collins, she'll make it perfectly clear that in her meeting with him, in the statements she made, he told her he wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. And so this is where my theory goes, Herb, because I have no knowledge. I have no idea, just a guess. And my guess is if you've got Kavanaugh going back on what he said before, then how do you put him in a position where he holds the line now on something he agreed with, because he's already out there? It's done. And so there is the potential of a Republican clerk in one of those offices putting Kavanaugh in a position where he can't reverse why the opinion was being written. Do you see, Herb, what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I guess if you're going to tie it back to Kavanaugh only, but there's 9 judges, and I think the guest you had on couldn't answer the question of why it's not murder if you move it back to the states. But that's not the right question. The question is, it should be moved back to the states because it's not in the Constitution, and that's what the Supreme Court is solely empowered to do, is enforce the Constitution.
So
that's why they're moving it to the state.
Do you believe, Herb, that if you have an abortion, if you choose to have an abortion, that you have committed murder?
I think it's a matter of time. In other words, you should not be able to have an abortion at full term. You should not be able to have. Some people are even talking about having an abortion post-birth, like 10 days after they're born.
So
you shouldn't be able to have an abortion at 40 weeks.
So
I would draw the line at 20. Probably.
Okay, so you would allow abortion to be legal up until the time that science or physicians have determined that the baby can live on its own outside the womb.
Very good, exactly.
Okay, so if somebody has an abortion 8 weeks into their pregnancy, or she's missed her period twice, which is far before when the timeline that you just gave was, you would make it legal for her to have an abortion.
Yeah, I believe I would.
Okay, there. Thank you, Herb. Thanks for the answer. The states' rights issue. The people that believe that abortion should be completely illegal, but yet are willing for this to go back to the states and be determined there, which as they see the Constitution being. I have to ask this. Those same people, what did they think under their theory of governance? What did they think about slavery? Because that's what the slave states were arguing, which was the Constitution allowed them as a state to determine whether or not there would be slavery in their state. I'm sorry, but that's what their argument was. And so, well, now you're confusing it by talking about slavery. No, what I'm doing is I'm making a parallel argument of states' rights. And there are times when it's an individual right in some people's eyes, myself included. Put me down as myself. I believe that anyone who is black has a right to not be a slave. I believe that any woman has the right that if she's pregnant and it's an unwanted pregnancy, if that pregnancy is because of rape or incest, I believe she should have a right to terminate that pregnancy. I believe that for health reasons, she should have the right to terminate that pregnancy. And here's the thing that I believe, without knowing, other than poll numbers, and poll numbers have proved me wrong before, but I believe that the vast majority of Americans agree with me. I believe that while they don't want it to be often, and for the most part, they don't want it to happen, I believe that Americans believe it needs to be legal because they know someone who had one. It's been around for 50 years, ladies and gentlemen. It's been legal for 50 years. If you don't think you know someone that has had an abortion, you are incredibly naive. If you don't think you know someone that paid for an abortion, you are incredibly naive. Here's the truth about what's happened in those 50 years. There have been men who have encouraged women to have an abortion because they didn't want a child of theirs to be in their life. This whole, okay, if you're a man, well, you take the baby. Well, you raise the baby. Well, you then, because you didn't plan on marrying her, having a family, raising the baby, but you don't want her to have an abortion. Well, you take the baby. Because what we're finding out, and in those 50 years, is the answer from men, by and large, is no. It's no. And so let's not be so naive that we don't know that. The point I'm trying to make is, because of how sensitive the issue is, because of how private the issue is, and because of the fact that they chose in their life to utilize what was legal, or what today still is legal but soon won't be, that you are seeing individuals who utilized it but don't want to talk about it, and they're not going to support it. Let's get to Bill. Bill, you are on News and Views.
Good morning. I believe the Republican Party may have killed the goose that laid the golden egg, because for years the Republican Party has used the abortion issue to fundraise. With the abortion issue gone, where are they going to get their money from?
Well, and I said that from a political standpoint, I have been saying time and time again that this has been the biggest benefit to them when it comes to just sheer politics, when it comes to just sheer raising money, getting people riled up, voting on a single issue. You know, I'm going to use this as an example. My legislative district was solid Democrat. And you know what we did? We won. We won the big issues. We won. We got better workers' comp. We got better hours. We got the employees out at Bobcat treated like human beings and respect. They weren't told on a Friday that they will work a Saturday when they had a family reunion on Saturday. There was rules. They had to support and respect the union. The union got the job done. And so what happens? Those workers out at Melrose take all of that for granted, and they start voting Republican. The very people that we had to fight to get those things passed. The very people we had to fight to get those things passed. And what happened? They started voting Republican based upon guns and God and gays. And now, someday, this is going to happen to them. This golden goose that was just mentioned is going to happen to them. They're going to start losing those rights. They're going to start seeing, people say, the union doesn't matter. Get rid of the union. Da, 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 da. And then they're going to wake up on who was on their side. Let's take a break. When we come back, Tracy Potter's going to join us. And Jeremy, you hang in there. I'll get to you as well. 880-5346. There was a conversation earlier, if you're just joining us now, about whether or not the bridge in Bismarck-Mandan, the railroad bridge that's set to be tore down, is in fact the state's. There was a letter that came down from the Coast Guard to the state of North Dakota in regards to their position on it, based upon a non-opinion by the Attorney General's office. Tracy Potter, the man that's asked for that opinion that he never got, joins us now. Senator Potter, good to have you on News and Views.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
I want to hear about the Coast Guard letter. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Basically, they said, they've been holding in abeyance their decision on whether or not to issue the permit to BNSF to tear down the bridge. And then they said, well, we've got our answer. It's a non-answer from the Attorney General that the state's not asserting its rights, so therefore go ahead and we'll issue the permit. I think there's going to be litigation on it, but I just wanted to compliment you because you're not a senator anymore, but you got the answer from the Attorney General.
The ground is North Dakota's, right?
Exactly. And he wouldn't say that to me, but he said it to you. And if the riverbed is the state's, up to the high water mark, it's still the riverbed. That's the riverbed. And all those bridge pylons and everything, that's all part of the superstructure, is all in the riverbed.
This thing is headed to a lawsuit, Tracy. You and I both know that. When it's headed to a lawsuit, it comes down to standing. What standing does Abby Miller have to bring suit against the Burlington Northern to say you can't tear down that bridge because it's mine? I own it. What I heard was that the state owns the riverbank. The bridge is on the riverbank. Agreed?
Right.
So I therefore own the bridge. Is that, in your minds, a decent argument, though, to make?
I think it's a very decent argument, but the standing one is a question. Judges rule differently on standing. Obviously, the state of North Dakota would have standing, but do I, as an individual, citizen here in North Dakota, do I have standing? That's where we could end up, missing an opportunity. And I heard what the Attorney General said, but I think he's just flat out wrong on this, that we do own that bridge. But your questions, many of your listeners were asking questions about, do we really want it? Ownership and maintenance and things like that. Well, the maintenance over those 140 years was for the business that BNSF is running. They had to do that, but now they say they need a new bridge. Well, that's great. So give us the old one. The fact that they're still running trains over it today means that converting it to a footbridge is not going to be a terrible maintenance headache for anybody. Plus, we've got $15 billion in trust funds, and we've got a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. So I don't know exactly what it'll cost, but I'm going to try to find out tomorrow. I've got a meeting with the director of the Department of Transportation. This is a question I'm going to put to him.
Tracy, I've gotten calls from that area, people very passionate about it. Even the people that want to keep the bridge raised the question that you just addressed, which is maintenance, which is upkeep, which is what do we really own once it's all over. But the one thing that's consistent is they want the bridge. They don't want to see it knocked over. Is that what you're hearing in your legislative district? Absolutely.
That's all I ever hear, and I hear it from Republicans and Democrats and everybody I talk to about it. They all think it's a good thing if we could keep it, And I want to raise one more point, just about kind of about the 21st century, Joel. We built our railroad. They built the railroads, and cities grew up around them. Now it's time for railroads to go around the cities. It's just safer for everybody. It's less noise. It's a better thing. And so I think there's an opportunity here. If BN wants a new bridge, yeah, you should build it, but let's build it to go around our city, not through it.
Tracy, always good to talk to you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Joel.
Tracy Potter, state senator from Bismarck. Abby Miller, I know we got some things going on that are really, really sweet here. There's messages for Mom. What's this about?
Yeah, so it's going on this week. And if you've been listening to any of the afternoon shows, if you're in the eastern part or online, You might have heard some of the messages. It's brought to you by
They're
Carol.
way cool.
They're so cool. I love hearing them. Brought to you by Carol Woodman's Candy, Hair Success Salon and Spa in Mindeck Market. But you can call 701-446-8151. Or if it's easier, just text mom to 35270 and you'll get a number. Leave a message for your mom and you might hear it on air this week.
Yeah. So, but you can't hear it on air unless you call in.
Unless you call in.
Yep. I was thinking of a number of individuals
Or
that
text mom 35270.
And you know, even if you are an occasional listener, which shame on you, you should be a consistent listener. Even if you're just occasional listener and your mom listens, think of the smile you're going to put on her face.
Yeah.
Right. Or if word gets back to you and you can just go, what's that number again?
Text mom 35270.
There you go.
And then you'll get the number back.
Yep, exactly. And the sweet part about that is that I know what's going to happen. She's going to go, hey, did you hear Bobby? Did you hear Bobby's voice on air?
Yeah.
You hear what he said to me? This is going to happen over a game of bridge or a game of pinochle. This is going to happen at the Umcumps. I don't know where it's going to happen. I just know that they're going to love the fact you took the time to do it.
And it's a good reminder to get those flowers or that card for any of the moms in your life for this weekend.
I want to just let any of you know as these discussions take place, and they will continue to take place on an issue as big as the one that the Supreme Court is thrusting back upon us. If you say that this is strictly a states' right issue while at the same time you believe that terminating a pregnancy is murder, you have no standing with me with the argument. You don't. You don't. You can't say, oh, gee, this is terrible, it's evil, it's murder, but we'll just decide that here in our state. Because if that be the case, little black kids still wouldn't be going to public schools in Alabama. Good riding with you, folks.